Today I visited my local Harley-Davidson dealership. I went to check out the 2019 models, and I ran into the general manager there, and his name's Lyndon. I've known Lyndon for a couple months now. He's a really cool guy. He teaches a lot of classes at his dealership, and he's been in the motorcycle industry for close to 20-25 years. And one thing about this guy, I trust him. And when I say that, it's like there's certain people in this life, you know, when you go into like a dealership, whether it be an automotive or motorcycle, that they have the best interest in, you know, for you. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned from this guy is he won't BS you. If something's not right for your bike, he'll tell you, don't get it. You know, that happened when I did the stage upgrades. We were talking about difference between stage 3 and 4. He says, the way you ride, do not get a 4. He didn't try to get the extra money. He just basically wanted to see what was right for me. So anyway, one thing led to another as we started talking. And I asked him, I said, hey, listen, you know, what do you think about these new models? And then I just said, you know what? Why don't you just get on film real quick, and I'll film you talking about them. So now I'm going to introduce you to Lyndon, and he's going to do a walk around and talk about the differences of the 107 and the 114 and the engine, and get all like freaking technical and stuff on you. He's also going to talk about the new GTS, the infotainment system. So here's a nice little Road Glide Special. Take it away, Lyndon.
I'm Lyndon. I'm the Director of Operations here at All-American Harley Davidson, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about the new 2019 Harley-Davidson touring models. So what we have here is a 2019 Harley-Davidson Road Glide Special. They obviously redesigned the Road Glide rather dramatically in 2015, and then in 2017 it came with the new Milwaukee 8 motor. And in 2018 they changed the specials in both the street glides and the road glides and really blacked them out. So that theme has continued, but for 2019, along with some new colors obviously, we have the specials are getting the 114 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 motor. The standard still has the 107, but the specials get the 114. Some other, probably the biggest news for this year is the new 6.5 radios. It's a 6.5 GTS infotainment system. And one of the selling points in this is that the processor is just a lot faster. The other is that it has some better navigation. So we'll walk through a little bit of this. I'm not the expert yet. I've just played with it a little bit. But this, I'm not sure if you can get this in the shot, but as before, this joystick, it's a 5-way joystick, works very intuitively. It seems complicated until you start using it, but it's super simple. You press that, and that's a home button. This home button up here will do the same thing, but you can really do everything from the thumb controls. I'm going to show it on the screen so you can see what we're doing. But from this control, you have a much more simple and intuitive layout. So obviously music, navigation, and phone. So there is a way to pair your phone with this, and it's quite simple. If we go to music, it just takes you right to that. If you want to look at your different options for bands, you've got AM, weather band, FM. So very simple. If we go back to the home button, click on navigation, very simple. It takes you to a map. Click up here, you get some choices in the nav menu. But the processor is much more quick than it was last year. I don't think that it was ever a problem for most of us, but once you see it moving a lot faster, you kind of get spoiled. And I think if you use this for a while and you go back to last generation.
No, I mean, when I took it out on a ride, it's definitely faster. And then I like how you can, that's a lot quicker than before. I think I would have the arrows or something where you had to hold it and drag it, whereas this, it's kind of like a phone, and you just crop it and it goes
I think
really
everybody's used to that from their phone, being able to just squeeze and or expand this quite simply. If you're riding, I think that the minus or plus control is still a pretty nice feature.
It is.
And when I'm riding, I use that quite a bit. It works the same way, it's just much more rapid. Another thing that's kind of a minor touch, but this button, there used to be an info button there, which would get you temperature and whether your oil pressure was okay and whether your engine internal temperature management system was enabled or not enabled. Now it's the back button. And I didn't think that was a big deal, but when I used it a little bit, I found that it was pretty nice to be able to just go straight to that back button. There's also some quick setup options, if I can remember where they are. So that takes you to audio setup really fast instead of having to go back to the home, toggle over to setup, click that, toggle down to audio settings. You just go right to it. That makes that simple. So if you want to switch back to, go to headset from speaker for either of these, and obviously again, all of this can be done with thumb controls, but it's just much quicker to do that. Before you had to navigate through about 6 screens, and it wasn't difficult so much as it was clunky.
The screen looked nice on the ride. When I was riding today, it looked very bright, easy to...
So I haven't had, that's a great point. I haven't had it out in the bright sunlight, but the claim is that it's much brighter, and in glare-inducing situations, it's much less likely to produce glare.
I didn't have any issues with it.
Yeah.
No, it was pretty cool.
And I have had some issues with my previous generation that when it's bright sunlight, I don't even bother looking down at the screen sometimes because I know it's hitting that screen in a way that's going to make it difficult for me to see. And looking at this right now, and your comments reminds me of something else, which is that they're using Gorilla Glass on these now. Before they had a protective coating. And while we haven't seen a lot of problems with those, we have seen some. And I think given the durability on your basic smartphone, we're likely to not see many problems on these.
It's cool.
Unless you sit on it, right? And then you break it. So don't sit on your radio.
What's your take on the engine, the 114? How about from a comparison standpoint from the, let's say, like I have in my bike, I have the Stage 3 107 to 114. So what do you...
I mean, obviously, there's an old saying with displacement that there's no replacement for displacement, and the reason that's an old saying is that it's so true. It really is the case. If you can get more cubic inches, you're going to get more power, and if that's relatively easy to do, that's a good thing. However, this motorcycle, this stock from the factory 114, has slightly different geometry than the Stage 3 114 that's been boosted up from the 107. From the factory, the stroke is a little bit longer. It's a 4.5-inch stroke instead of a 4 3/8 stroke on the 107. We don't change the stroke when we boost it to 114 from 107. Therefore, the bore on the boosted 114 is a little bit greater. But the bigger difference for the power that you probably felt between your bike and a stock one of these is that the compression on that Stage 3 114 or Stage 4 114 is higher, and the cams are more aggressive. So it will produce more power. This, on the other hand, can be boosted to that condition, but for not much extra, you can also turn it into a 117.
Yeah.
It doesn't make as big a difference as 107 to 114, but it's a very nice motor.
Yeah. And then these have the stretched bags, right?
Yeah. So as before with the 18, when they redid the specials and blacked them out, they did stretched bags. Also, blacked out front end and these really nice turbine wheels. I think those are probably the nicest from the factory wheels that I've ever seen. Obviously, there's choice between chrome and black, so if you like chrome wheels, then that may not be your bag. But for a factory wheel, it's just a beautiful wheel, very nicely done.
And LEDs standard?
LED is standard on the Road Glide. The Street Glide still has the dual element halogen, but there is actually a new adaptive headlight LED, which we could get into more detail, but we kind of got to put that on. Maybe we need to put that on your bike, huh?
trying to get me to spin
You can
more.
check it out. Give me a full review.
And there you go. It's a sharp looking bike.
It's really a nice looking bike, and it's also a bike that just really works well. If you haven't ridden the Milwaukee 8, one of the things that you may not notice right off the bat, but it really jumps out at you in comparison to the twin cams, is just how much cooler it runs. The things that you'll notice probably more quickly is how smooth it is, and that's due to, in part, a counterbalancer. It is still rubber mounted, but the counterbalancer gets rid of an awful lot of those vibrations before the rubber mounts have to take over. And how much pulling power it has. Really has a lot of torque right out of the chute.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank Lyndon here at All-American Harley Davidson, and we're in Southern Maryland, so for taking the time and talking about these beautiful bikes.